when did the kings stop ruling, and why did the stewards take over, and what happened to all the kings? And these are questions that need answering. Basically. So,
riddles in the dark.
So one of the stories from the appendices explains exactly how the line of the kings ended. And I'm going to tell you a little story about the last king of Gondor, who was a guy called King Arnor. And so we're going to have a little bit of a story time today. And for dramatic effect, I'm going to start at the end of the story and tell you all about King Arnor's demise and how he met his doom. So
nice. So it's going to be like flashback to 5 months earlier. That kind of thing?
Exactly. It's good.
Cool.
Yeah, exactly. We're going to, I don't know what kind of movie directors are famous for shooting in this type of style, but there's a lot of them out there. But because I remember when I was reading, I was on a plane months ago reading through the appendices of Lord of the Rings, and I was exhausted and I was just tired, and I was reading this story, and it was one of those times where you're reading something and just the information is not really going in. And then I remember I came to the end of the story about him, and something really caught my attention. I was like, whoa, hang on a minute. I need to go back and read all of this again, because we find out that he eventually died because he marched on Minas Morgul with a very small company, and he took on the Witch King in 1-to-1 combat. And then after that, we don't actually hear too much about how it ended, but basically him and his company were never seen again. So I remember just being like, that's a pretty badass way to go. I mean, if you're going to be the king and you just decide you're going to march up to the Witch King. So the Witch King had sent him a challenge to single combat, and he accepted the challenge, and he rode off with his Kingsguard to take on the most evil and most feared, one of the most evil and fear-invoking beings ever to stain Middle-earth, I suppose. So I thought that was really, really cool. Now, we don't actually, as I said, we don't get too many details, unfortunately. So it's unknown if he actually fought the Witch King in a fair trial, or if there was possibly some foul play involved. Like, I mean, after all, it was the Witch King we're talking about. So he could have ambushed the king upon his arrival or cheated in any sort of a way. All that we know is that they were never seen again, the king and his company. So we can assume that this King Arnor was a total badass and completely fearless. If he was brave enough to challenge or to take on this challenge against the Witch King. So it's a pretty cool way for the line of the kings to be broken. I'm sure you'd agree. And I mean, at least it was broken in this like honorable and courageous way. I mean, can you imagine they were like, how did the Lion Kings break? And it was like, oh, just some guy got diarrhea, just shot himself to death or something. Like, back then, like, I mean, you could probably catch a common cold and that could be the end of it. So
you could catch a common cold and shit yourself to death as well.
You could, there's lots of worse ways to go. So
that was like how people, that was like natural causes back then, just shitting yourself to death.
Oh, yeah. It was just like, it was a bit ruddy today. I think I'll better get my affairs in order. So it's also pretty cool when you think about it, that like the Witch King, he's this guy that we meet in the Lord of the Rings, and he's trying to stop the return of the king. He's trying to stop Aragorn returning as king, and he is the one who broke that line centuries before. Like I think it's like 800, no more than that, like a couple of thousand years before. He's the same dude. So
wow, yeah.
It's cool. And a little side note is that we're also going to learn a little bit more about the Witch King today. So kind of like his origin story. Well, maybe not his origin story, but like, So
this is like modern filmmaking where we have the like
little side
the end of the movie, and then we have like the 5 months earlier or 800 years earlier or whatever. And now we're having also like a prequel with the Witch King and his origin story.
A bit of a prequel. Like,
how he became the Witch King.
Not exactly his origin story.
Was he bitten by a witch?
It's more like before he was the leading member of the Ringwraiths, the famous group that we see. Like, it's kind of like seeing him off on his own, like a young Witch King just doing his thing. Kind of like, imagine if you're in the the 60s and you're listening to the Rat Pack and you're like, geez, these guys are good. Who's this guy Frank Sinatra? And people are like, whoa, he had a whole career before. Like, you need to go and check out his earlier stuff. And it's like, whoa.
Are you going to make me really like the Witch King though? Is it going to be one of those things where it's like, I'm going to feel emotions for the bad guy?
No, you're just going to you're just going to think he was, it's just going to build on already what we know about him and expand his, flesh out his story a little bit, I suppose. Even though he had no flesh. But anyway.
Feast on his flesh.